The INFJ personality type has always stood apart from the world around them. Not because they want to, but because they can't help seeing what others ignore. They observe, absorb, and reflect. That reflection is what makes them the black mirror of humanity, a quiet but powerful presence that shows people who they truly are, even when they don't want to see it. The INFJ doesn't just watch what's happening on the surface. They sense what drives it, the hidden fears, the patterns of behavior, the motives behind people's choices. They read the emotional current of a room before anyone speaks. And when they interact with others, something interesting happens. They start reflecting truth. People see themselves more clearly around an INFJ, sometimes in ways that are uncomfortable. That's what makes INFJs so hard to control. You can't manipulate someone who sees through the mechanism of control itself. They notice power dynamics, emotional manipulation, and false intentions almost instantly. They don't rebel loudly, they simply don't play along. When systems, authority figures, or even relationships try to shape them into something unnatural, the INFJ quietly steps back. They might comply on the outside for a time, but inside, their mind is already analyzing, already finding the point where they'll break free. That's what makes them dangerous to those who depend on control. They can't be programmed. This black mirror effect doesn't come from arrogance or defiance. It comes from awareness. The INFJ reflects what they see: honesty, fear, inconsistency, truth. And when people look at them, they see their own reflection looking back. Some find that inspiring. Others find it threatening. In this video, we'll explore 6 reasons why INFJs act as mirrors for humanity and why, because of that, they can't be controlled. Reason number 1. They see patterns no one else does. INFJs live in patterns. Their minds constantly connect pieces of information, emotions, and behavior into meaning. While most people see events as separate moments, the INFJ sees the invisible thread connecting them. They understand not only what's happening, but why it's happening, and what will happen next. This ability comes from their dominant intuition. It's not a conscious process, it's a deep sense of recognition. They notice tone, timing, reactions, and contradictions in others, then link them together like clues. It's not guessing, it's recognition of patterns over time. Because of this, INFJs can see manipulation, falsehood, and emotional games before they fully unfold. When someone tries to control or deceive them, the INFJ often senses it early. They may not call it out right away, but they start to pull back quietly. They test the person's intentions. They gather more signs until the pattern becomes undeniable. By the time others notice the problem, the INFJ has already understood it. This awareness makes them unpredictable. Systems of control, whether in workplaces, social groups, or relationships, depend on people reacting in predictable ways. The INFJ doesn't do that. Once they recognize a pattern that feels false or unhealthy, they change direction entirely. They stop responding the way others expect. Their ability to see patterns isn't limited to people. They notice cycles in society, culture, and power. They recognize trends before they become obvious and sense when something feels off in the collective mood. That insight makes them seem detached, but it's actually clarity. Because they see beneath the surface, they can't be easily persuaded by appearances or authority. Their mind looks for the motive behind every message. And once they find it, they decide for themselves whether it's real or manipulation. Control depends on illusion. The INFJ's intuition destroys illusion. That's why they're so difficult to contain. They see too much. Reason number 2. Their values outrun any system or rule. Most people are guided by rules. They follow what society, work, or relationships expect. INFJs don't reject structure, but they don't obey it blindly either. Their loyalty lies with their internal values, not external authority. If something violates their principles, they walk away, no matter who or what is behind it. This moral independence makes them impossible to control for long. Systems can influence behavior through reward and punishment, but INFJs don't care much about either. They don't chase approval, and they don't fear rejection when their conscience is involved. They'll cooperate quietly until they realize a rule contradicts their sense of right and wrong. Then, without fanfare, they stop participating. In workplaces, this might look like an INFJ leaving a job that pays well but feels unethical. In relationships, it's choosing peace over attachment when trust is broken. In society, it's speaking up for truth even when silence would be easier. The INFJ's decisions are rarely impulsive. They come from long reflection and moral conviction. Normal systems rely on compliance. They function because most people need belonging or recognition. The INFJ values meaning more than comfort. That makes them unpredictable and, in the eyes of authority, unmanageable. You can't control someone who's willing to lose everything except their integrity. Their values act like an internal compass. Even when they seem lost or uncertain, that compass points them toward alignment. When others ask, "Why can't you just go along?" the INFJ's answer is simple: because it feels wrong. That's all they need to know. This doesn't mean INFJs are rebellious for the sake of rebellion. They can follow structure if it serves a higher purpose. But once it becomes empty, corrupt, or controlling, their loyalty ends. They'll remove themselves with quiet certainty. Their strength comes from moral clarity. They don't need permission to do what feels right. And that independence, that unshakable connection to values, is something no external power can override. Reason number 3, they don't perform for approval. They reflect truth. The INFJ's authenticity makes them mirrors for the people around them. They don't act to impress or manipulate. They act to express truth. That sincerity is rare, and when people encounter it, it exposes their own lack of honesty. INFJs can't fake enthusiasm or affection. When they care, it's real. When they don't, it shows. They might try to hide discomfort out of politeness, but their energy gives it away. People feel their sincerity, and they also feel their distance when something isn't genuine. This natural authenticity makes control nearly impossible. Systems of control rely on performance, doing what's expected to gain approval or avoid punishment. The INFJ doesn't play that game. Their approval comes from within. They don't need validation to know their worth. Because they live in truth, they unconsciously reveal truth in others. When someone lies, acts, or hides behind a mask, the INFJ's calm awareness reflects it back. They might say nothing, but their eyes say everything. People sense it and feel uncomfortable. This reflection can change people for better or worse. The self-aware often grow from it. They feel inspired to be more honest. But those who live by pretense may resent the INFJ for making them feel exposed. That's why the INFJ can be loved and disliked for the same reason. They don't pretend. Their refusal to perform also protects them from manipulation. Flattery, attention, or social status hold little value to them. They'd rather be real and misunderstood than fake and accepted. That quiet defiance removes the hooks most people get caught on. The INFJ's truthfulness doesn't come from pride, it comes from need. Pretending feels heavy to them. Living honestly feels like breathing. They can't be controlled because their loyalty is to truth itself, not to any person or system. When others look into the INFJ, they see themselves reflected, sometimes beautiful, sometimes broken. And that's the essence of the black mirror. It doesn't judge, it simply shows what is. Reason number 4, their emotional radar bypasses control mechanisms. INFJs are guided by a deep emotional intelligence that operates far beyond logic or rules. They don't just hear what people say, they feel what those words mean. They read tension in tone, hesitation in pauses, and truth in silence. This emotional radar makes them nearly impossible to manipulate because control depends on misunderstanding, and INFJs rarely misunderstand emotion. They can tell when someone's being kind to gain favor, when a compliment hides an agenda, or when a promise is made for convenience instead of sincerity. Even before words betray the truth, the INFJ feels it. Their empathy functions like an internal alarm system that signals when energy shifts. That instinct makes deception and emotional control useless on them. People who rely on influence or manipulation often find the INFJ unsettling. Their usual methods don't work. Guilt trips, social pressure, and false charm lose their effect because the INFJ reads through them. They might respond politely, but they don't absorb the manipulation. They sense the motive, and once they do, the connection quietly weakens. What confuses others is that INFJs rarely confront directly. They don't shout or expose. They simply stop feeding energy into what feels false. This calm withdrawal often disarms those trying to control them. Manipulators expect a fight. Instead, they get silence, and silence is power. The INFJ's emotional radar also helps them protect others. They can see when someone else is being misled, and they'll step in subtly to shift the energy. They redirect conversations, offer perspective, or pull people away from emotional traps without needing to argue. Their understanding of emotion gives them invisible influence that control systems can't trace. While logic-based systems try to define people through measurable rules, INFJs navigate through feeling. They know that emotion, not logic, drives most human behavior. Because of that, they can anticipate reactions and avoid being pulled into emotional manipulation. This radar doesn't make them invincible, but it makes them self-aware. They still feel emotions deeply, but they've learned to separate their own feelings from those of others. Once they master that distinction, emotional control becomes impossible. They can empathize without absorbing, connect without losing themselves, and love without surrendering power. The INFJ can't be controlled emotionally because they understand emotion too well. Their empathy isn't a weakness, it's an early warning system. It allows them to sense manipulation before it starts and walk away before it takes hold. Reason number 5. They need autonomy to stay aligned with vision. INFJs can only function at their best when they have freedom to think, feel, and act in alignment with their inner vision. When they're trapped in rigid systems, told what to believe, or pressured to behave a certain way, their energy collapses. Control drains them faster than exhaustion. From a young age, INFJs feel the need to create their own path. They might follow expectations for a time, school, work, relationships, but only until they recognize that those structures limit their authenticity. When a system demands compliance over truth, they start to detach. This is when they begin seeking autonomy. Autonomy doesn't mean isolation. It means self-direction. The INFJ doesn't want to rebel for the sake of rebellion. They simply can't live according to someone else's script. Their sense of purpose comes from within, and no amount of outside pressure can override it for long. When someone tries to control an INFJ, whether it's a boss micromanaging their decisions or a partner trying to dictate their emotions, they respond first with patience. But underneath, their intuition starts analyzing the situation. They ask, "Is this still aligned with who I am?" Once the answer becomes no, they begin planning their exit. The INFJ's need for autonomy often surprises people who mistake their kindness for compliance. Because they're gentle, others assume they'll accept control. But when they reach their limit, they don't ask for permission. They leave. Quietly, completely, and without regret. Their independence is fueled by vision. They're not just trying to escape control, they're trying to live purposefully. They know that creativity and meaning can only thrive in freedom. When their soul feels caged, they lose clarity. When they regain freedom, their insight returns. That's why the INFJ's life often moves in cycles of withdrawal and reemergence. They retreat to realign, then return stronger. Those who understand this rhythm respect it. Those who don't may call the INFJ unpredictable or difficult. But it's not rebellion, it's balance. To stay true to their vision, they must keep their freedom intact. And because of that, any attempt to control them will always fail. The INFJ's power doesn't lie in resisting control through force. It lies in quietly stepping out of reach. Their alignment matters more than approval, and their peace matters more than belonging. That's what makes them untamable. Reason number 6. Their inner world drives their outer impact. Everything the INFJ does begins inside. Their thoughts, emotions, and insights form a private world so rich and complex that it becomes their main source of direction. While most people are guided by trends, authority, or external validation, the INFJ is guided by vision, one that no one else can fully see. This inner world gives them strength that can't be influenced from the outside. They're self-sustaining. They recharge through reflection, imagination, and introspection. They don't need external approval to feel real. They already have a clear sense of identity built from within. That's why control doesn't work. You can't manipulate someone whose power doesn't depend on you. Their imagination is not fantasy, it's strategy. They visualize possibilities and plan steps that align with their beliefs. When the world around them becomes chaotic, they retreat inward, reassess, and emerge with purpose. This ability to self-correct makes them resilient to external manipulation. Even when faced with pressure or chaos, INFJs return to their inner foundation. They ask, "Does this feel true?" That question anchors them. It's how they avoid being swayed by opinion or fear. Once something aligns with their inner truth, they move forward with quiet confidence that no outside force can disrupt. Their influence comes from the same source. They inspire others not by control, but by example. People are drawn to their calm certainty, sensing that it comes from a place untouched by fear. That kind of stability has power, the kind that doesn't shout, but changes rooms by presence alone. When systems or individuals try to control them, they're met with something immovable. Not anger, not rebellion, just an unshakable stillness. The INFJ doesn't fight for control because they never lost it in the first place. Their authority comes from within. That's why they act as humanity's mirror. They show people what true independence looks like, not the kind that rejects connection, but the kind that can't be owned. Their mind and heart belong only to their truth, and that truth shapes everything they do. The INFJ's outer calm hides the depth of their inner certainty. That certainty is their armor. It protects them from influence, manipulation, and control. Their power begins where fear ends, inside their own mind. The INFJ stands apart, not because they want power, but because they understand it. They see how control works, in people, in systems, in relationships, and they see through it. That vision makes them unmanageable in the best possible way. They don't fight authority with rebellion or noise. They do it with awareness. They do it by refusing to be changed by fear, pressure, or false promises. They are the black mirror of humanity because they reflect truth, not distortion. When others look at them, they don't see what the INFJ is doing. They see what they themselves are doing. That reflection can be uncomfortable. It reveals motives, insecurities, and weaknesses that most people prefer to hide. But that's exactly why the INFJ is necessary. They show the truth that others try to forget. This reflection is not cruelty. It's clarity. The INFJ's empathy allows them to understand darkness without becoming it. They can look at manipulation and not absorb it. They can feel pain and still choose compassion. That balance makes them untouchable by those who seek control. When others try to force them into conformity, they stay calm. When the world becomes louder, they grow quieter. They lead not by pushing others, but by standing firm in authenticity. Their strength doesn't come from resistance. It comes from stillness. People often mistake the INFJ's calm for softness, but softness isn't weakness. It's control over themselves. They can't be controlled because they've already mastered their own emotions, their own fears, and their own truth. External pressure doesn't work on someone who has faced their inner world and made peace with it. That's why the INFJ doesn't seek power. They already have it. The kind of power that doesn't depend on position, wealth, or influence. It's the power of insight, awareness, and conviction. It's the power of knowing what matters and never betraying it, no matter the cost. When you look at an INFJ, you're looking into a mirror that reflects more than surface. You see your reflection, your honesty, your motives, Some people can handle that. Some can't. But the INFJ doesn't change for either. They simply remain the mirror. And that's why they can't be controlled. They don't resist for the sake of resistance. They just refuse to live outside their truth. They know that control fails wherever awareness begins. And they've been aware their whole lives. If you are an INFJ, understand this: your depth is not a weakness to hide. It's the reason you see what others miss. It's the reason no one can manipulate your soul. You are the reminder that truth can exist quietly, powerfully, and without compromise. You are not here to fit into the world's reflection. You are here to hold the mirror steady.